So again, picking up here in part two of talking about degenerationism as an explanation of cultural diversity, God destroys the Tower of Babel, essentially curbing human hubris, and creates differences in languages so individuals can't work together to build this tower to ascend to the heavens, essentially dispersing the people, some of which degenerate and essentially lose civilization and become savages. On the other hand, cultural diversity is also explained through the notion of progressivism, that is, society started out primitive, but were progressing towards a more civilized state. This gained favor in Europe by the time of the Industrial Revolution. And in the context of social theory, this gained a fair amount of prominence as well. We see the ascendancy of these social theorists who are essentially progressivists, Herbert Spencer, Lewis Henry Morgan, and E.B. Tyler. Spencer was interested in evolution as a general phenomena, as one of the fundamental natural processes of the universe. And as I mentioned earlier, he was the individual that was responsible for coining the term survival of the fittest. Lewis Henry Morgan, in his book Ancient Society in 1877, attempted to trace the evolution of human society from primeval times to the Victorian era, which he considered to be the high point of human civilization. E.B. Tyler, in his book Primitive Culture in 1871, had the focus on the evolution of religion, noting that societies would progress in lockstep fashion, much like the other unilineal evolutionists, from animism to polytheism to what he termed to be enlightened monotheism. So we can see here with these social theorists that many of these evolutionary ideas, and they were not necessarily drawing from Darwin. In fact, many of these early 19th century evolutionists were drawing from Lamarckian ideas in conceptualizing society as a whole. By means of review, in this lecture we've discussed the evolution of the concept of evolution as we understand it today from Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace in their 1859 book on the origin of the species, looking at variational evolution or the notion of natural selection. Darwin and Wallace derived their work from earlier ideas that go back to the great chain of being, essentialism, of Plato, binomial nomenclature of Linnaeus, where things are, of course, rather static. We start to see things change with Cuvier, with Lyell, with de Maillet, and others, to the point where we get to Lamarckian notions of evolution by means of the inheritance of acquired characteristics, or an idea of use it or lose it characteristics, before we get to Darwin and Wallace. And of course, with Darwin and Wallace, we also see the influence with the natural sciences on the social sciences as a whole, and the social theorists of Spencer, Morgan, and Tyler. And we will come back to this later on in the semester when we're discussing different theorists and ways of thinking about anthropological theory and the human condition overall in the context of cultural anthropology.